most recent episode where the criminal psychologist was involved, and we asked a bunch of questions. Someone said, did we ever get to the heart of what Catherine's, not just her state of mind, but what was going through her mind, in the sense that, was there any, have you come up with any reason why, if she did either want to put the kids somewhere where she thought they would be safe, or did do them harm, what was going on? Was she trying to protect them? Was the devil talking to her? What do you know, having been in her life and around her at the time, what was going on in her mind that would have led her to do whatever it is she...
At this point, there was no signs of anything like, like her hearing voices, someone telling her to do things.
There was none of that.
Once again, when this happened, I mean, we were at probably the highest state of progression we had been at since 2013 when she was committed.
In her mental health.
Right. She was engaged with the kids. Everything was going well that day. Like I've said before, it was the best day that we had in a very long time. And it had been kind of building to that, to where at that point, for the past month or two at that point, things had been going pretty well overall. That was, I guess, probably right around that month or two mark, as she started coming around more. Her family decided, at that point, hey, just, bring the kids over to us. We'll be there with them.
To her parents.
Right, so that now she's not alone with them. Okay. It was... I don't know. There's no signs of anything like that. Any kind of like psychological break.
Was there any, with this psychologist who talked about? He brought up this case in Aiken, South Carolina, from many years ago, where this woman drowned her 2 kids because she was in love with someone who didn't want kids. So I'll get rid of my kids and then I can go off with this guy. Catherine was not mad at you for anything, jealous about you.
No, I mean,
back at Troy by doing something bad to the kids.
No, and obviously she. It wasn't necessarily my place to do it, but I assume she never spoke to her mom about it. Her mom and I had a conversation, and I'm not putting a lot of it out there, just though, but what did come up was that she wasn't aware until she heard me say it, that I was kind of pushing towards Catherine moving out and still trying to keep her in the kid's life.
Moving out of the apartment?
Right, so, yeah, because we hadn't been in an actual relationship for a very long time at that point, but it was just a matter of, I believe, part of it would be that she felt like her life had become kind of punishment because it was so regimented. She couldn't be alone with the kids.
Driver license.
Right. Wasn't able to drive. Wasn't able to leave freely. Like I said, have
control over her own life.
Right. I believe a lot of it is control. One of the things I can tell you from talking to her about this, whenever I called her, whatever she did is completely about her. 100% about her. It has nothing to do with the kids. It's not like she's trying to protect them from something. It's
or get back at you for anything.
That would be about her wanting revenge. That's possible. Gotcha. I'm sure there was anger with me having her committed. I've read things since then. I've heard a lot of things, talked to people, and a lot of times there is anger against the person who.
Which was a year previously or months previously.
It would have been 2013,
so
right?
Within the year prior to the children going missing.
Right.
His mother got her civilly committed, and again, why?
Right.
She was just exhibiting signs of.
There was a lot of things. She was making choices that weren't going to keep her or my children safe. I just didn't feel like it was a safe situation for anyone around her at that point with the choices she was making as well. And then there were just certain things where she would react certain ways to things like that. It would be almost as if I said something to you and you responded to something I completely different say, didn't say. It just. And
that brief commitment helped her, right?
It appeared to. She was restored to being competent to come out within the first, I would say, 30 to 40 days, the first time, if I remember correctly. Then the next time, I believe it was within 60 days or so.
Now it's been criminally committed for 3.5 years, and she's not well enough
right.
for a trial.
Right, and I'm looking up other cases where there are people, there are people who have shot their family members, clearly on purpose at times, it seems, and they have been committed. They were not competent. They were competent, went to trial, were NCR'd. And within 60 days and within 60 days of that, released from Perkins into society because they were cleared. So I'm trying to figure out how it takes 3.5 years for someone who has been restored to competency several times. So it's either she's playing the system, which is what I truly believe because of speaking with her and her borderline admitting it to me by telling me that she's been, advised by Felsen to stay incompetent. by
attorney.
repeating back to me and telling me the entire system whenever I was trying to explain to her that if she brought the kids home, she would walk when she had only been there a year at that point. That was
and
when
only charged with misdemeanors at
right.
that point.
I mean, she backtracked through the whole system. She said no. She said, well, because I said to her, parental abduction is 60 days time served. You've already been there a year. What was the other thing? It was obstruction is 90 days. That's time served. Bring the kids home and you'll walk. She said, well, there's still the 2 misdemeanor neglect charges, which carry 5 years each. She goes, that's 10 years. She goes, well, hold on. I've been here a year, so that would be 1 year time served. I would still have 9 years left. They're not going to let me walk.
So you're like, if she's lucid enough
She
to
had
figure
enough
that
to
all
talk
out.
about that. So during those
Right.
restoration moments of competency, I mean, did they get anything else? I'm just kind of backtracking here, but
sure.
get anything else from her about what happened that day or where? Like, she would say nothing. Is that the case? I know some people were asking so what she said. question her, but you guys
Right.
did.
I mean, several times. The police questioned her the day that she was arrested for 15 hours, I believe it was.
After spending a lot of time with Troy, going to different daycare centers where she said she had taken him. So Troy was the first one to question her, where are the kids? Then the police for many hours at the end of that week.
Right. Her mom also questioned her initially whenever, when she came to meet me to get my older son away from her.
Yeah.
Her mom questioned her then. Her mom on the phone said, basically, get the kids wherever they are, go to the daycare, get them, where are they? Because she had been running around checking daycares as well. So she questioned her at that point. Then when the police arrested her, they brought me in hoping that she would tell me something being their father. And she wouldn't say anything. I pleaded with her repeatedly, tell me where my children are. Her father came in. She smacked his phone out of his hand basically and just and said something about him ruining her plan or whatever. I don't know what that was all about, but she was hostile towards him, and he tried to get her to say something that day apparently. I don't know exactly what was said between them. I wasn't in that room, but I know that there's been several times she was questioned. When the order was lifted because it got moved courts from circuit to district circuit, yeah. Then I know that the detective who was riding with her just asked her a few questions, and she just said that she can't talk about it. I've called her recently. She said she can't talk to me. She's been told she can't talk to me. So she's just not talking at all.
And again, you believe whatever she did was something from her.
Right.
Not to save or protect the children or hurt the children necessarily. Why is it her?
She's extremely
type?
narcissistic, definitely. Very narcissistic. It is 100% about her. Whatever she did, it has to do with her, and if she ever is going to say anything, it's going to have to be to benefit her and be about her. It has nothing to do with the kids. In the times I've talked to her, she maybe once or twice has even asked about my oldest son. Like, she's not concerned about the kids.
Which is her child too.
Right.
And she wept audibly, like if you're on the phone with her, can you hear her crying for her kids?
No, not at all. Nothing. There's no emotion about the kids. Any emotion, any heightening in voice or whatever has to do with someone accusing her. If someone doesn't believe her, then things like that. It all has to do with her ego, herself.
And someone had asked this: the children are named Hoggle. They were not named Turner, right? I mean,
Right.
They're her.
Right.
They're your children together. What
Right.
was the thing? Someone had asked me. What was
So
the thing of it?
my oldest son has my last name.
He does.
And I was at the hospital the day they did the paperwork there. With the other two, I made sure that I was going to be there for them to be born. I actually quit a job because they had a problem giving me time off to make sure that I was going to be there. And when they were born, I was there. I was there every day afterwards, but I still had to work. I just started a new job at that point, went to work, came back, things like that. And while I was gone is when the paperwork was done. And we actually started to have a little bit of a blowout in the hospital over that. And I wasn't going to make a scene with nurses and babies around. So that got calmed down. At one point, I turned in the paperwork to try to get, just make sure that all the paperwork was done and stuff like that, and had her sign off on everything. And at that point, to even get her to sign everything, because I didn't even know what I was or wasn't on, I actually told her, I said, you either sign this stuff and we take it in, or you need to find a new place to live. I mean, it got to that point.
They were not married. So,
Yeah.
and
Right.
So, okay, so.
Right. So I mean, it was all about her trying to take control all the time.
Which someone suffering from mental illness often feels like they don't have control. And when they don't take their meds, they get worse. But then when they do take their meds, they might get better. But then there are side effects that they feel like they're out of control. It's an unfortunate thing. So, but the naming it was more of like a paperwork thing. I mean, so your oldest child has your last name, Sarah and Jacob,
which
at Hoggle.
I have actually not even considered. I'm going to wind up changing their last names to Turner, actually.
Really?
Get that done legally.
Right.
Yeah, they're your kids.
Right.
Wow.
Any other questions from?
Yeah, I'm sort of gleaning through a lot of people expressing, of course, their sympathy and their thoughts and what they think, and they're going to be following this. And again, this is a 4-episode podcast right now, a variety of interviews that Bobby were able to get done.
And they're available. You can go to iTunes, Audio Boom, Google Play. If you search Missing Pieces, there are a lot of things called Missing Pieces out there. But if you do Missing Pieces, Fox 5 DC, and then especially What Happened to Sarah and Jacob Hoggle, you'll see it there. It doesn't cost a dime. You just download it. You can, or go to our website, fox5dc.com. We can link you there.
Yeah, and
They're all
Troy, you
about a
speak on
half
that a
hour.
lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
You're a big part of
He's
the
mainly
series.
part
You
one,
are.
and then we continue
Okay.
that conversation over the different parts. So it's 4 parts. There may be more. We may end up putting another.
Going to WABC area, it's over New Jersey, where a school bus crashed into a dumpster.
Quick note.
So we may. The news goes on. Imagine if there weren't kids on the way to school hitting a dumpster. But if there's enough interest or whatever questions that we haven't answered in the first 4 parts, we may just do an extra subsequent episode, even if it's 20 minutes long, just to answer some of the questions, just so that it's all contained out there. That people wouldn't have to actually, and there's this Facebook Live that you can see a recording of that answer. Just to keep it all in one place, we could possibly do another episode or 2 if there's something comes out, or if someone who's close to the family decides, I want to talk now, bring it on. There are some people who've said, I just don't want to be a part of this podcast, and if they change their mind, that could be an additional.
Right. Well, no, I definitely appreciate everything that you've done in the passion you've pursued it with, with trying to help me keep them out there and do the things that we've done. I appreciate you guys here a lot, actually.
If you see our news almost on a given basis, our lead story at 7 or 8 this morning was a 9-year-old boy from the district who was missing. Boom, he was found. I mean, and it seems to be more so lately that these, I don't want to call them random because they're not for the people involved, but these random missing, this 15-year-old, a 9-year-old missing kid, we put them on the news, and 99 out of 100, within that day, within a couple
Somebody
of hours,
sees them or something.
boom, and they're taken care of. This case, obviously, right off the bat, you're like, oh my God, these 2 little children. And then as the days and the weeks progress, it's a haunting thing. So that's why, I mean, if we could, with our resources, put together something and spend more time talking to you and the police and the prosecutors, her attorney, whoever, to kind of just, for people who are interested or who might know something that they don't realize they know, and help make something happen. Because when you think of for 3.5 years, wherever Sarah and Jacob are, it's mind-numbing, and so that's why.
Well, it's crazy.
Absolutely.
I mean, at first I thought it'd be a day or 2 max, and then we'd find them, or she would come back with them, whatever. So we started printing the flyers, getting them out there, things like that. Then I thought, okay, well, this thing can't go more than a week. So that Friday we find her, and we always thought, find her, find the kids. Kids aren't there. Okay, so somebody's holding on to them. We'll keep getting them out there, and within the next couple of days, someone is going to show up with them, drop them off. Maybe they don't show up and show their face, and that's why, for 2.5 years, I left my apartment door unlocked 24/7 in case someone brought them there,
Wow.
And then it became, well, it can't go past a month or 2. Someone's going to show up with, and here we are, almost 4 years later, and now I'm doing the opposite, going, this could go on forever,
One of the things, when Troy and I spoke for this podcast, and he is throughout all four parts, there are portions of our interview. One of the things I did not include, just for whatever reason, it just didn't fit in there, and so I still have it, but maybe we could elaborate on it here, that you did have a little bit of criticism for the police in that early on, you think you're looking for missing children who will be found, which is handled a certain way by police investigators, as opposed to we're looking for bodies. One of the things Troy mentioned in the podcast, in our interview, that actually didn't make it into any of the episodes, is that hit dumpsters right away. I know it sounds awful, but if you see a dad grieving, my kids are alive somewhere, I want to find them. The police, maybe they were, and it's one thing I don't know that I followed up and asked Darren Frank, who we interviewed for this podcast, was, did you guys, like early on, while you had this one track going, look, she put the kids somewhere with someone she knows, with a friend, neighbor, at an unknown daycare, but there's also the chance she killed them, so check dumpsters, check landfill, check. And your concern in that interview that I didn't use was like that, maybe we didn't look at it in that harsh way.
That we didn't come at it. We didn't come at it both ways originally. I had no desire to go at it both ways originally. I still don't want to. It's just it's in my face, and I can't not face that's the facts. But at the same time, and it's not necessarily a criticism. Here's what I'll say: if any mistakes were made, it wasn't due to incompetence. It wasn't due to anything negative. It was due to having officers and detectives who cared if I found my kids or not, and I believe that they may have been a little bit skewed towards that side because they wanted to believe what I believe.
They're alive somewhere, not that they're dead. They go, let's go find their bodies.
At the time, that's what I believed, and I believe that that's what everybody wanted. Within 48 hours, I think that they started to see some facts that I was not really wanting to even see. There's things that they went over with me that, quite frankly, my investigation discovered at the same time, or even a little bit before they did, that they backtracked over. And when they brought it up to me later on, I was like, yeah, that kind of points that way. But in the first day or two, I wasn't even willing to think that. And, I think that a lot of it was that within 48 hours, they did switch over. I definitely believe that it would have been prudent to search dumpsters and things like that immediately as well. But at the same time, it's not a reflection of competency on their part. It's not a reflection of anything. It's just that's what we all believed at first, that my kids were out there alive. We didn't have a reason to believe at that point that they weren't. And I mean, like Darren's not just a great detective, a great cop, a great leader. He's a great guy. He's a good man. He's a good father. I've talked to him. I mean, you can ask him. We've been on the cell phone till 1:30 in the morning at times, talking just father to father about kids. And it's not that any of them don't care. I've talked to Dimitri several times, and I'm still in constant contact with them. They care. They give a damn about my kids. It's not that. I've heard people ask me if I thought it had something to do with race. Hell no, it has nothing to do with any of that. It's just this case there's nothing to go to. A lot of times when you see these cases, statistics help solve them once it goes past 48, 72 hours. You can look at other cases and go, oh, well, this is what makes sense, and it gives you leads. There's no statistics for this because there's nothing to look at. This has not been done this way before, at least not that I've seen documented, not that I can find anywhere, and not that any detective, private investigator, former agents of other investigative bodies in this country have been able to tell me about that they can find.
Where a mother allegedly kills one child at a time. Is that what you're talking about? Does one,
right? Where you
and then comes
just one at a time, just picking them off, or however you want to look at it. And people can't imagine. You see where a mother snapped, and people go, "Oh, well, she had a lot of stress. This happened, whatever." But I can't imagine ever doing it to a kid. I mean, what type of a person does it take to go and take one at a time methodically and do that? Even we're not even talking about snapping.
Oh yeah, take one, disappeared. Jacob first, come back, and then Sarah. Did you have one of these? Just while we're still here and seeing if there are questions. Did you want to go back to one of our earlier ones?
Let's show.
We have a number of these video clips that we put on Facebook that just kind of help to kind of like promote the fact that we had these
the episodes. Let's take it back to the beginning to episode 1. This is sort of a preview video of episode 1, kind of intros it, especially if you're just joining us to know more sort of about the background of this story. Let's check it out.
Joining us for Fox 5 Local News at 5, I'm Tony Perkins.
And I'm Laura Evans. Montgomery County Police still need your help tonight as they release new video in the search for Catherine Hoggle and her 2 young children, Sarah and Jacob.
This is the first time anybody in the greater Washington, D.C. area would hear the names Sarah, Jacob, and Catherine Hoggle.
We need the eyes and ears of the community to help us find these 2 little children.
Sarah and Jacob Hoggle disappeared without a trace. The last person seen with them, their own mother.
We have no idea at this time whether the children are with someone and they're safe, or whether some harm has befallen them.
In part 1 of this podcast on the Hoggle case, we'll introduce you to the children's father, Troy Turner. He takes us step by step through those first agonizing, terrifying hours when he believes he interrupted Catherine's plan to also do their oldest child harm.
The working theory that we have right now is that she was coming back to get him.
Because you think she might have come back and grabbed him next?
Pretty positive she was coming back for him. She was taking them one at a time, which, you know, we can't find statistics for that even in terms of the way crimes were committed against kids and stuff like that.
But if you have 3 kids, why stop at 2?
Right.
Troy has more in store for us as this haunting mystery unfolds in a most confusing yet gripping fashion.
So that was the intro or the episodic video for episode 1. I know we had a couple questions too that I neglected to question you guys on. One was, obviously the age of these children has changed. There was sort of a sketch done for what they might look like now. Is that right? I know we have that somewhere
in here. If you look through some of our resources.
Interesting, because they're looking for children that have grown quite a bit.
Yeah, well, absolutely, in 3 years.
See if I can look through it. I know it's in one of them. But and then another question too from Allison: how can they release her, Catherine Hoggle, if she's incompetent to defend herself at trial? How would she be competent to function in society without other issues? I guess we kind of touched on that.
Well, it's 2 separate things. Competency is not a medical diagnosis; it's actually legal terminology, which states if she can help in her defense and things like that. You would actually think that bar is actually lower, so you would think if she's not competent, she wouldn't be competent to walk, but in their statement that I read, it basically said that she's a danger to Clint, myself, anyone around me kind of thing, and more of she would still probably not be civilly committed, but even if she was, then as soon as she walked, nobody would have the right to know about that. So
but that is an interesting point, that if she's not well enough to aid in her defense, but the statute of limitations or whatever arises, we're bound to let her go, even if she's not well enough to go to court, to walk out into society and do whatever.
And if you have, and it's not even deeming someone as a dangerous individual, possibly, they're deeming you a danger to a specific person who is 9 years old. How would they not, it just seems to me that they would be liable for not letting someone know that she was out. You have registries for people who are sex offenders and who molest children and stuff to protect people whenever, and this isn't even specific, this is generalized. We put it out there because you need to know if they're around you. Well, why wouldn't I need to know if this person who at one point wanted to kill my 9-year-old has already killed his younger brother and sister? Why wouldn't I have the right to know that she's out and that my son is in danger?
So it's a 2-pronged thing. We would have to release her, and we will not tell you that we're releasing her. So it does seem a little misguided.
Yeah.
Not necessarily specifically for this case, but for any.
Well, she literally has more rights than my children, dead or alive. She has more rights than my children. She has more protections than my kids. And that's why we need to make some of these changes, because we're not protecting the right people. We're just not.
Did you have another question? You said there was something.
Those 2 for now. I know some people are kind of just jumping in and wanting to know more, but obviously a ton of sympathy being poured in, prayers and heart going out to Troy for all of this.
I appreciate all the prayers. For
yeah.
sure.
Do you want to show this picture if you could?
Yeah, totally.
This is a picture I took in John McCarthy's office at it's within the courthouse complex in Rockville, Maryland, and that's the Hoggle case file, which is in his office. He says it's often under his desk, but he'll put it out there. So even though this is a case that's dragged on for almost 4 years, it's still right there, right in his face, so that he knows.
Yeah.
Not that anybody would ever give up, but it's a reminder. And there it is, sitting right in his office, in John McCarthy's office, the case file for the case against Catherine that would ideally ultimately lead to finding Sarah and Jacob.
Absolutely. I know you have a few stills in here from the children.
We have somewhere, and I don't know where it is. It's and there's John, right? There he is.
That's a good shot.
Next to his, and the age progression, it's somewhere. I mean, people can find it online. I don't.
It's interesting how they do that, and they need to, because that's what, they've grown. They were how old again? The age?
2 and 3.
Yeah.
2 and 3. Yep. And Sarah would be 7, or about to be older even, and Jacob's 5. In July is his birthday. It's and that's what she took. She took everything that they were ever going to be. And the age progression photos, they're good that we had them out there when we did, but at this point, I'm more concerned with keeping the pictures out there that in hopes it'll jog someone's memory if they saw something 3-4 years ago. You know what I mean? But it's hard to look at what they should be now.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, and you'll be thinking, I hate to say it, but you'll be thinking that, oh my God, this would have been her 18th birthday. This would have been his 20th.
For the rest of my life.
Of course, yeah.
Just can't imagine.
Yeah, for the rest of my life. That's and then we always constantly have to answer my oldest son's questions. As he gets older, he gets more of an understanding, and he has more and more questions and more feelings about it. And he remembers them, he misses them.
He mentioned that he had specific memories that aren't born from a photograph or a story that somebody has told.
Right.
They're based on his own interactions, his recall.
Right.
And the frustrating thing about this is, as a observer, reporter, is that police believe, prosecutors believe, you know who did it. It's not like they were abducted by a stranger and we don't know who that person is, we don't know where they are. You pretty well believe, and she's been charged by a jury of her peers, a grand jury, with murdering Sarah and Jacob. And I asked McCarthy at one point, it was in the podcast, it's like, take Catherine's hand and stick it over a flame and say, you talk. If that's got to be frustrating, believing that the person who could, in a minute, solve it all, isn't, for whatever reason, and doggone it, you'd want to do whatever you could, to get that out of her.
The most frustrating part about that statement, though, whenever you talk about that, it's when we're talking, people say, well, we believe this is this, we believe this is this, and that's frustrating alone if you believe it. But when you 100% know it, this isn't even a belief. There's no mystery here. It's not a mystery who took the kids. It's a fact. She's never even denied that. There's only been one person seen taking the kids, and that's her. There's no mystery in terms of what's the highest probability of what she did to the kids. It's more a matter of where she did it, where she put them, what is the best way to show them the love and respect they deserve at this point, and making sure that we have enough evidence mounted to go forward with whatever we're going forward with. And just getting forward is the bigger issue at this point. Just having the system move forward, having a system that actually protects the victims, not the perpetrators.
Yeah.
All those are kind of the issues. But I mean, the most frustrating part is there is zero mystery to this.
As a journalist,
we 100%
she's
know.
not been convicted of anything, so you need to be
No,
impartial.
and I understand that.
But as someone who has the most vested interest here, and you know what you know in your heart.
Well, right, and the only thing that I would say is just simply, the people who know anything just need to come forward. Anyone who knows something, if she has talked to anyone, if she has talked to her father, if she has talked to her mother, if she has talked to someone on the inside, it doesn't matter who it is.
If she happened to confide in a former inmate or resident at the hospital.
In some form or manner, the information needs to be brought forward so that my kids can rest. It doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter who it is. I don't care if I never find out who it is. I don't care if it's someone who says, I'm only doing this because I want a $20,000 reward. Fine, I'll get you the money. Someone needs to come forward.
One viewer asking, where exactly was she when they disappeared? Just to clarify that.
So on Sunday, she was in Darnestown.
Okay.
And she left from her mom's house. The phone kind of shows that she stayed within that area unless
Jacob. That's Sunday,
right? This is
September
Jacob.
7th of 2014.
Okay.
The phone shows that she was kind of within a 20-minute radius of the house. It appears to be going back and forth between maybe one or two towers. And at some point, it's very possible, because she was going for so long, that she left the phone at the house and came back in the garage even. It's very possible that she stayed in that area the entire time. We don't know.
What kind of time frame are you talking? Like 3 hours maybe?
Three to 3.5 hours, somewhere in there.
In the afternoon
That she
of
left
that
her
day?
parents' house and then came back, came back without Jacob.
Without.
Right.
Supposedly to go get pizza.
So right around 3 hours, yeah.
She didn't have a
First
driver
child.
license, and she wasn't
Right.
supposed to be alone with the kids, let alone driving in a car with kids when she didn't have a driver license. But she did. She left the
Right.
house
With a car.
with Jacob to go get pizza. Came back 3 hours later without him.
Okay.
So that's kind of like in that Darnestown area.
That's
and there've been
Sunday.
searches in the. I was there for searches in like the fields and the ballpark there, and they
Off
were up
River
by
Ford and stuff.
right, and up by the there's a Harris Teeter up there. So that whole area was initially. And
Then Sarah.
And Sarah, she came home with them that night.
home to Clarksburg.
Right.
To Troy's apartment
Okay.
in Clarksburg.
So sometime between 1:30 in the morning, whenever I went to sleep, and 7:15 when my oldest son woke me up. So in between that time, she took off for a time period. The best guess that we have, but once again, we're also going. The problem with a lot of this is we're going on the word of people who have not been reliable to keep their stories together.
Okay.
But the best time frame that we can come up with is somewhere around between 5 or 6 in the morning leaving and then coming back around 8:30, which that part I know for sure because when she came back, that's where I was.
Coming back to your Clarksburg apartment
Right.
And
without
at that
Sarah.
point, Troy had no idea that Jacob wasn't home. Troy was working Sunday night, came home. Nobody told him, hey,
Got it.
and the story that Catherine told her parents at the time was, I dropped him off for a sleepover at a friend's house. Because
At 2. At
age
2 years old, yeah.
At 2 years old, he
Right.
went over to a 5-year-old
improbable.
friend's house for a sleepover at 2. So she comes back from the pizza run 3 hours later without Jacob, but told her family he's at a sleepover, which all this never got back to Troy. So when Troy gets home from work that Sunday night late, early Monday morning, he thinks both kids are asleep in their apartment. It's believed that Sarah was in there asleep and then disappeared the following, sometime in those following hours, but that Jacob was not there. He'd been missing since the night before when he was supposedly taken to a sleepover, but who knows?
And the fact of the matter is, from when they got home between 9 and 9:30 and the kids went to
Sunday
bed,
night,
right,
back to
until I
Clarksburg.
got back a little bit after midnight. For all I know, she could have, if her father threw her the keys earlier, he could have thrown them to her again. I don't know. Or
She could have taken the car
right,
again.
or Randy
But
went
do you
up
believe your
to.
oldest child saw Sarah back at the apartment
Right, no,
in
he.
Clarksburg.
They
so
showed up together. They hugged each other goodnight. They went
she
to
was
bed.
definitely
Oldest son,
So
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
around
definitely back in
right. So that was
Clarksburg
around
Sunday night
9:30.
after Jacob was gone.
Wow.
Right around between 9:30 and 10 o'clock after they got back. Those two went to bed. From that point until I got home, for all I know, she could have took off again. He could have threw her the keys, or Randy could have went upstairs to do his work or whatever, and
Randy's
she could have took
Catherine's
his
father.
keys.
Okay.
Who was
so-
staying at the apartment to kind of help be there because
Okay.
Catherine wasn't supposed to be alone with the kids. So Randy, her father, would stay at Troy's place with Catherine and the kids just as kind of like a extra set of eyes there.
Now, for that second time, was there any cell phone data concluded about her whereabouts?
Didn't have a phone with her
She left it
during those hours. She
at
did
the-
on
Right.
Sunday afternoon,
Right.
right?
In the morning, she left her phone at my apartment. When I went to call it, I heard it vibrating on the end table. So she didn't take it with her.
And just for people watching here, this whole timeline story is in part 1.
Yep.
We went through this very methodically, this fact, scenario here. So people watching now and wondering why aren't you getting into all these details? Not that I'm trying to promote you to listen to the podcast, but we're not being ignorant here. In part
Sure.
1, this whole story and timeline is laid out.
Right.
But for those who haven't listened and are wondering, this is kind of how they went missing. September 7th, Sunday into Monday, September 8th, 2014. Darnestown, Clarksburg,
Yeah.
all part of Montgomery County, Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C.
And where she disappeared and was found was right there in Germantown around Town Center, right down by the Pinnacle Apartments on Crystal Rock, I believe that one is, was where she was arrested. And she disappeared from the Chick-fil-A right there, directly across the street from where she was arrested.
She disappeared Monday, is found on a Friday, and 4 days later is right across the street.
She's on video in an office building over by where, I don't know how long you've been there, where Fairchild used to be over there in Germantown. They turned those into like all the offices and stuff.
I didn't know what Fairchild was.
It was a huge company, and they had their own golf course stuff. I remember because in like 7th, 8th grade, we used to go steal the golf carts and drive around.
But now, during that part of the week, Catherine did not have a car. She did, when the children went missing, had access to a car. So there's a chance she could have gone further, but when she had no means other than to hop on a bus or take a train, she stayed right there.
She was, and you had sightings different places when we showed up in Gaithersburg and other places. There was never anything that was verified. Everything that's verified was essentially, like I said, within almost a 4-block radius. There's video of her sleeping in the office building over there. There's, it's like, I believe, like 0.2 miles away. There's some sightings around the Hamptons, the apartments there, or it's the Hamptons now, right? They changed the name from the Colony. Yeah, the Hamptons, but and the 7-Eleven there. Supposedly she was asking for money out front of it one day. So let's assume that some of these sightings are true, even 7-Eleven or something like that. Well, if she's out there asking for money, she doesn't have the money to get herself out of town. She does not have the money to move kids. She doesn't have the resources to get a ride somewhere. She doesn't have the resources to move children. There's just nothing that makes sense about the kids being in some other state, in some other country, and quite frankly, in Rockville compared to Germantown at this point, it doesn't make sense. So it's everything that happened, any sighting that happened. Whenever she was found, she had a purse full and hands full of flyers that we had put up of her and the kids trying to take them down from the Pinnacle Apartments.
Oh, she was trying to take them down.
Yeah, and the reason, why would you take them down if you're not even going to be there? She's taking them down because she has no way of getting out of this area. She doesn't want people to know who she is. She cut her hair because because she's cutting her hair to disappear. She's cutting her hair because she's stuck where she is.
She wants to look different than the
So
picture of her in the poster. Here's a question. Knowing Catherine as well as anybody, besides maybe her parents and her frame of mind then and now, can you believe, and I know you believe she's responsible, I got to be careful how I say it, but that she was capable of doing something with the kids that 3.5 years later, we still haven't found them? Like knowing her mind and what she was capable of doing or not doing, to have successfully, in whatever fashion it's been, hidden these kids to the point where 3.5 years later we still don't know.
Well, here's what I realized looking back, especially, is you never think someone, especially a mother or something like that, because when I think of my mom, nobody's perfect or whatever. Everybody thinks, right?
She was close,
right?
right?
Everybody thinks that their family's crazy or whatever. We have our issues, we have our fights, whatever. But at the core of it, when I think of my mom, I think of someone who loves me unconditionally. I think of someone who raised me by herself, who has sacrificed the majority of her life for me. That's what I think of initially. When you think of your mom, you may have similar things or whatever, but a lot of times when you think of a mom,
no.
if you think of the word mom, you think of unconditional love immediately. When you hear about not even a mom who does something like this, when you hear about a mom who is abusive over kids, neglectful over kids, it is almost appalling. And it's sad because we don't look at fathers the same way, like these absentee fathers and stuff like that. They're not looked at the same way. They're just looked at, oh, well, the dad just left. At least he's paying child support. Well, we'll be there for your kids. Don't just put your money there. And I'll be honest with you, that's been one of my biggest things, is finding a balance with all this going on and still trying to be there. And at times, thank God I have who I have at home, because she will straighten my ass out. She'll tell me, hey, you're not being present. You need to find that balance again. Without her, I mean, before her, it was spinning out of control. Without her, it would probably re-spin out of control over and over again. So I'm grateful to her for that. But there's nothing inside of me that says I don't want to be there for my kids. I don't want to be a father. When you think about that, and you think about your parents, you think about a mother, you think about a father, you don't think about these horrendous things. So even being in, and when you're inside of a situation, a lot of times it's harder to see things from the inside than outside. And with us, especially because there was that progression I talked about before, people will say things like, well, how could you have had 3 kids with her? Well, in the beginning, it didn't appear to be anything wrong. What I know of pregnant women is at times they get moody through hormones and things like that. And at first, that's all it felt like it was. By the time it hit a point where I go, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? We had 3 kids. There was a progression. And that's not an excuse, that's not anything, it's just what it was. But even then, at no point do you think, when you say the word mother, this is within what's going to happen. This is within them to do to their own children. You can show me a serial killer in prison who's a mom, and I still in my mind would not picture her killing her own children. It's just not something you think of.
So to wrap your head around how she could have successfully done what she did,
not just successfully, but just how she could do that,
Sure.
period,
First part,
to
Right.
your own children. Like, I can't imagine doing anything to purposely hurt my children, much less kill or bury or hide or any of that. I don't know anyone other than apparently her who could. It's not, and I look back and I go, man, maybe I should have known this, I should have known that. But it's still, even 3.5 years into it, it's hard for me to really grasp that somebody's mother would do this to them, much less the mother of my children, and take my kids from me.
And you've touched on this, but one of our viewers was expressing the sentiment, like, we talked so much about Catherine and what she may have been feeling or is, but how is Troy doing? And you've kind of just explained that.
I mean, I appreciate that, but I mean, it's, and this isn't like a martyrdom thing or anything. It's really not about me though. It's about Sarah. It's about Jacob. It's about my oldest son. You know, it's about those things. I'm kind of a byproduct of that, and my job is to do whatever I can as their father to bring peace to them, and whatever that means at this point in their being. So for Sarah and Jacob, maybe it just means finding them, bringing them home, treating them with love and respect that they deserve, instead of leaving them out somewhere or burning them with trash or whatever she had done with them. With my oldest son, it means, you know, trying to set a better example for him going forward, being respectful of his situation, but yet not letting it define him, and not letting him use these things as excuses going forward. You know, obviously, like I said, no longer spoiling him going forward, fixing the damage I unfortunately did by doing that, and finding that balance and still being his father, all at the same time. So, I mean, that's what it's more about. And then going further, as I said, you know, whenever I was on other shows stuff, I've said this, you know, obviously I have to focus on what's affecting my kids now, but once you clean up your own yard, you can go out into the neighborhood and do these things. So, I mean, and then it becomes protecting kids on a broader level. It becomes making sure the victims have more rights than the people who are victimizing them, and things like that. There's a lot involved and a lot going forward, but right now in the immediate, I just have to take care of my kids on whatever level that means for all of my kids.
Being a dad.
Yeah.
Being a dad.
Well,
Thanks, Troy. Unless
thank
there's
you.
something else there,
This was
yeah.
great. I know
Yeah,
you
we
guys
could
went
take
on
more
long.
than
Thank
that.
you guys for
No,
watching on
it's- We
Facebook.
could be here all day.
Yeah, we could. This is a long, drawn-out conversation. Again, podcast available on our website, on iTunes. We're going to continue to follow this, and if things do come up, maybe there'll be another.
Yeah, and if people watch this recording of this and have questions, throw them at
Yep,
us,
you see
throw them at
the-
me, and we'll try to answer them. And clearly, I mean, this podcast, as it is right now, may be wrapping up, but this story obviously hasn't, and will.
Absolutely.
At Fox 5 and through our podcast, whatever, we'll still be following every twist and turn, and
Exactly.
ideally,
I appreciate it.
generating something that I was going to say wraps it up, but that's too nice a way to
Right.
describe it, but bring some
Find
sense
some
of
answers.
finality and answers,
Sure.
and peace to the family and to those two children.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming to the
appreciate it.
studio today and joining us and being so open and candid about your experience.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next time.